But what y'all didn't see is y'all didn't see that kid that no one seen because he was small, because he couldn't shoot as good as everybody else, because he wasn't athletic as everybody else.
When Dwyane Wade finished his senior year of high school, he thought he had done everything right. He led his team to one of their best seasons in school history, set records that still stand today, and showed up every single day proving he belonged on any court in the country. He put up the numbers. He earned his spot. And when it came time for colleges to notice, they didn't. 0 stars, unranked, completely invisible to the basketball world. Major programs didn't just pass on him. They never even looked in his direction. The few schools that did offer him a scholarship didn't matter anyway, because he had failed the ACT and wasn't academically eligible to play. After everything he'd worked for, the door to his dream was slammed shut before he even got a chance to walk through it. This was a kid from the south side of Chicago who had spent his entire childhood watching his mother battle drug addiction, who lived on welfare, who was raised by his teenage sister because there was nobody else to do it. Basketball wasn't just a hobby for him. It was the only way out of a life that tried to break him right from the beginning. And now, after fighting through all of that just to make it this far, the world looked at him and said he wasn't good enough. Most kids just accept the fact that maybe their dream wasn't meant for them and moved on to find another path. But as we all know, Dwyane Wade didn't do that, because somewhere between that rejected high school kid and the Hall of Fame stage that he eventually stood on, something extraordinary happened. Through the years of proving doubters wrong at every single level, Dwyane Wade became one of the most decorated players in NBA history with championships, all-star selections, and a finals MVP trophy at an age when most players are still trying to figure out their role. He didn't just make it into the league. He built a legacy that should be undeniable. And yet somehow, even after all of that, there are still people today who question whether he belongs in the conversation with the greats. The question isn't what he accomplished, because the records speak for themselves. The real question is how. How does someone the entire world dismissed manage to prove every single person wrong? How does someone carry that weight for an entire career and never let it break him? How does an unranked kid with no path forward become an NBA legend? Dwyane Wade retired as a 3-time NBA champion, a finals MVP, and a 13-time All-Star. He's in the Basketball Hall of Fame on the first ballot, named one of the 75 greatest players in the history of basketball, and widely considered the 3rd best shooting guard ever to play the game behind only Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. His resume is stacked with accolades that most players spend their entire lives chasing and never come close to reaching. But to understand how someone builds a legacy like that after being completely dismissed by the basketball world, you can't start with the championships or the all-star selections or the Hall of Fame speech. You have to go back to the beginning. You have to go back to the south side of Chicago, where survival mattered more than basketball, and where a kid named Dwyane Wade was just trying to find a way out. D-Wade grew up in a neighborhood where making it out wasn't just difficult, it was rare. His parents separated when he was just 4 months old, and his mother Jolinda was awarded custody of Dwyane and his older sister Trigel. Life after that was chaos in every direction. Jolinda struggled with addiction for most of Dwyane's childhood. She was dealing just to survive. She cycled in and out of prison, and the instability that came with that life bled into everything around them. The family lived on welfare, moving between apartments that never felt permanent, in neighborhoods where violence wasn't an exception but a constant reality. For a kid trying to grow up in that environment, there was no safety net and no guarantees about what tomorrow would look like. Dwyane has talked about nights where he couldn't sleep because he was worried about whether his mom was safe or not, whether she'd come home, whether the next knock on the door would bring more trouble. Even when you're way too young to fully process it, that sort of fear doesn't leave you. It just becomes a part of how you see the world. And his father, Dwyane Wade Sr., was a Vietnam War veteran who brought military discipline into everything he did. He wasn't in Dwyane's life every day during those early years, but when he was around, he pushed hard. Structure mattered. Accountability mattered. Wade Sr. believed in toughness, in making his son earn everything and never accepting excuses.
I mean, Dwyane was a very quiet young man, and then he had me as a daddy, so he had to be quiet.
Big facts.
But
that intensity would shape how Dwyane approached competition for the rest of his life. But as a kid, it also meant there was pressure coming from every direction. And then when Dwyane Wade was just 8 years old, everything changed. His older sister made a decision that would alter the entire trajectory of his life. One day she told Dwyane that they were going to the movies. He didn't think anything of it. But instead of a theater, she took him to their father's house and left him there. She knew that if Dwyane stayed in that environment they were living in, the odds of him making it out were slim. So she made the call that their mother could never make, and she forced a change that nobody else had the courage to force. Dwyane didn't see his mother for 2 years after that moment. Living with his father brought stability, but it also brought a different kind of weight. Wade Sr. demanded discipline and work ethic in everything, and basketball became the outlet where all of that energy could go to. Dwyane started playing more seriously. Not because anyone told him he had a future in it, but because it was the one place the noise in his life quieted down. On the court, everything made sense in a way the rest of his life didn't. If he worked hard, he got better. Simple as that. The game gave him something he could control when nothing else felt stable. He wasn't the most naturally gifted kid at first, but something about the game stuck with him in a way that nothing else did. It gave him a path forward when every other door seemed closed. By the time he got to high school at Harold L. Richards in Oak Lawn, Illinois, Dwyane still wasn't on anyone's radar. His older stepbrother Demetrius McDaniel was the basketball star in the family. Dwyane was just the younger kid trying to find his footing. And then right before his junior year, he grew 4 inches of height seemingly overnight. And that growth spurt changed everything. Suddenly, Dwyane Wade wasn't just keeping up, he was dominating. He led his team to one of their best seasons in school history and set school records that still stand there today. He was undeniable, or at least he should have been. Because even with all that production, even with the records and the wins and the obvious talent, the recruitment letters didn't come flooding in like they were supposed to. Major programs ignored him. National recruiting services didn't rank him. He was a 0-star prospect in every database that mattered. Out of hundreds of Division I schools across the country, only 3 offered him a scholarship: Marquette, Illinois State, and DePaul. And even those 3 didn't matter because Dwyane had failed the ACT multiple times. He wasn't academically eligible to play D1 basketball. The thing that had kept him going through all the chaos when he was a child, the dream he'd been chasing, was slowly slipping away.
And I didn't really see the future at that moment. I just seen what was in front of me, and what was in front of me was I couldn't play basketball.
He'd done everything he was supposed to do on the court, and it still wasn't enough. The door was closing, and there was nothing he could do to keep it open. Until one school decided to take a chance on him anyway. That school was Marquette, and the head coach Tom Crean made a promise that changed everything. He told Dwyane Wade that even if he didn't pass his ACT, Marquette would still honor the scholarship. They would find a way to make it work. For a kid who had spent his entire life being told no, being told he wasn't good enough, being told that the door was closed, that commitment to him meant everything. Crean's recruitment wasn't casual either. Marquette sent reps to every single one of Dwyane Wade's high school and AAU games. When Crean came for his home visit, he brought a chart documenting every game they'd watched, a miniature replica of the United Center with Wade's figurine inside, and a cap and gown to show that he believed Dwyane could succeed academically. It wasn't just about basketball for Crean. It was about investing in the right person. When Dwyane called Crean in tears after failing his ACT again, Crean's voice was shaken on the other end of the line. He told Dwyane that they would still proceed with the plan, and that moment sealed it. Dwyane Wade committed to Marquette, enrolled as a Proposition 48 partial qualifier, and sat out his entire freshman year to work on his academics while practicing with the team. That year of sitting out could have broken him. Watching his teammates play while he had to stay on the bench, knowing that he was good enough but not allowed to prove it, that was tough for Dwyane. But he used that as fuel. He worked on his game in practice every single day. He focused on his academics. He prepared himself for the moment when he'd finally get his chance. And when that moment came, he did not waste it. In Dwyane's sophomore year at Marquette, he led Conference USA in steals and helped the team win over 20 games. Suddenly, people were starting to notice. But it was his junior year when everything exploded. He became the first Marquette player to earn first-team All-American honors in over 2 decades. He was named Conference USA Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year all in the same season. But none of that mattered as much as what happened in March. The 2003 NCAA tournament was where Dwyane Wade went from a name people were starting to recognize to a player the entire country could not ignore. Marquette entered as a 3rd seed, and Dwyane carried them through every single round.
Wade guarded by Page, now the switch. Oh, what a screen. What a screen. Look at this. And the basket. Oh, wow.
In the Elite Eight against top-seeded Kentucky, one of the biggest programs in college basketball, Dwyane Wade recorded a triple-double with 29 points, 11 rebounds, 11 assists, and 4 blocks.
Incredible performance. He's doing everything, Wade. You name it.
It was only the 4th triple-double in NCAA tournament history, and it sent Marquette to the Final Four for the first time since they won the national championship in 1977. His mother, Jolinda, who had just been released from prison 3 days earlier, was in the stands watching him play for the first time in 5 years. Marquette's run ended in the Final Four with a loss to Kansas, but Dwyane had already done enough. 3 years earlier, he was a kid that nobody wanted. Now, he was projected to go top 5 in the NBA draft. D. Wade didn't become the Flash by accident. He was always prepared for whatever the game threw at him. And honestly, that same mindset applies to your finances as well. That's why I want to tell you about Clover, the sponsor of today's video. Look, we've all been there. Unexpected expenses pop up. Payday might still be a few days away and you need cash now. Maybe it's car trouble, gas, rent, groceries, or just random life events. Clover lets you advance up to $400 before payday with no credit check, no interest, and definitely no late fees. No hidden costs trying to trap you like those predatory payday loans do. Period. This is earned wage access done right. Here's what I love. You can either wait a few days for your money or just pay a small fee to get it instantly. That's it. It's transparent, it's fair, and it's about giving you control of your money. Just like D. Wade had control on the court when it mattered most. That's the clutch play for your wallet right now. So if you're short on cash, be sure to click the link down in the description or scan the QR code that's on the screen and sign up for Clover to get access up to $400. Using that link or QR code will let them know that I sent you. Major thanks to Clover for sponsoring today's video. Let's get back to it. The 2003 draft was loaded with talent. LeBron James was going first overall to Cleveland. That was never in question. He was the generational talent that everyone had been talking about since he was in high school. Darko Milicic went second to Detroit in what would become one of the biggest draft mistakes in NBA history. As a Pistons fan, I hate being reminded by this. Carmelo Anthony, who was fresh off of winning a national championship at Syracuse, went third to Denver. A skilled big man with range and potential named Chris Bosh went fourth to Toronto. And with the 5th pick,
the Miami Heat select Dwyane Wade from Marquette University.
5th pick. Still the afterthought. Still the guy taken after everyone else in the top tier. On draft night, the cameras followed LeBron. All the headlines were about LeBron. Dwyane Wade was just another name called, another pick made, another player heading into the league with something to prove. When Miami made this pick, they had no idea they had just drafted the player who would become the greatest in franchise history.
Welcome to the NBA, Dwyane Wade. You're making quite a splash here in your first game.
Dwyane Wade's rookie season was exactly what you would expect from a player who had been underestimated his entire life. He didn't come in trying to prove that he belonged. He just played like he already knew he did. There was a calmness in how he approached everything that didn't look like rookie energy.
Who had scored 4? Oh, what a play! Oh my God! He jumped right out of the building! He's Superman!
He controlled the pace, made the right reads, and closed games with a confidence that most players take years to develop. By the end of the season, he was averaging 16 points, 4 assists, and 4 rebounds per game. He earned a spot on the all-rookie first team and finished third in Rookie of the Year voting behind LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony. The pattern was still there, still finishing behind the guys who had been ahead of him on draft night. But anyone paying attention could see that Wade wasn't just keeping up with them. He was right there competing at the same level. Miami ended up making the playoffs, where they pushed the top-seeded Hornets before losing in the first round. But even in that loss, Wade showed flashes of what he could become.
Wade puts it up. It's good. Yeah, baby.
There were moments in that series where he took over games, where he looked less like a rookie and more like someone who had been doing this for years. And Pat Riley was watching all of it. Riley had been around the game long enough to recognize when something special was sitting right there in front of him. He built championship teams before. He'd coached Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in Los Angeles. He knew what greatness looked like in its early stages. And he knew that if you had a player like that, you didn't wait around hoping things would develop naturally. You acted. You surrounded that player with talent. You gave him the pieces he needed to win right now. Because Riley understood something that most franchises take too long to figure out. When you find a generational talent, you don't waste any time. You don't wait to see if they'll get better. You just go all in. And that summer, Pat Riley went out and made one of the biggest moves in franchise history. He traded for a dominant center who had just won 3 championships, a player who was still one of the most unstoppable forces in the entire league. Miami wasn't rebuilding anymore. They were done waiting. They were building a championship contender, and they were doing it right now because the Heat had finally realized just how special Dwyane Wade was going to be.
They're out of their seats in Miami. Dwyane Wade is incredible.
The 2004-2005 season started with a new reality in Miami. Shaquille O'Neal had arrived, and with him came expectations that the Heat hadn't carried in years. Shaq was still dominant, still one of the most physically imposing players the league has ever seen, and everyone assumed that Miami's success would run through him. The narrative was clear. This was Shaq's team, and Dwyane Wade was the talented young sidekick learning how to win from a champion. That narrative lasted exactly 1 season. Miami earned the top seed in the Eastern Conference that year. Wade's game took another leap, and the chemistry between him and Shaq was undeniable. Shaq commanded attention in the paint. Wade attacked from the perimeter, and defenses couldn't focus on both at once. The Heat rolled through the regular season and into the playoffs, where they made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals before losing to the Detroit Pistons in a tough series. It was a disappointing ending, but it wasn't a failure. Wade had just finished his 2nd season in the league, and Miami was already 1 game away from the finals. The foundation was there, the pieces were in place, and headed into the 05-06 season, the question wasn't if Miami could win a championship, it was when they would.
How you doing? Marquette, how you doing? I'm doing all right. Hey, I didn't know you was that good, did you?
That very season, Wade took yet another leap. He was putting up elite numbers that placed him among the best guards in the entire league. Shaq was still productive, still a presence, but anyone watching closely could see that that offense was running through Wade now. Miami finished with a winning record, and when the playoffs started, they were ready. The first round matchup was against the Chicago Bulls, and it was tougher than anyone expected. Wade battled through a severely bruised hip and still carried Miami to a series win. The second round against New Jersey was more comfortable as Miami advanced. Then came the Eastern Conference Finals against the Detroit Pistons, the same team that had ended their season the year before. This time, though, Miami won. Wade dominated through the entire series, and when the final buzzer sounded, The Heat were heading to the NBA Finals for the first time in franchise history. Their opponent was the Dallas Mavericks, a team that had posted one of the best regular season records in NBA history and were heavy favorites to win the championship. And that's where the underestimation happened again. Going into that series, every analyst, every scout, every coach was focused on one thing: stopping Shaquille O'Neal. Dallas's entire defensive game plan revolved around limiting Shaq in the paint, collapsing on him every time he touched the ball, forcing anyone else on the floor to beat them. They sent help from every direction. They made it clear that Shaq wasn't going to dominate them the way that he dominated teams in the past. But while Dallas was throwing everything they had at Shaq, they were ignoring the flash that had been growing right in front of them the entire time. Quick side note, I know you hear every YouTuber say this, but 97% of you guys are not subscribed. So if you can just do me a huge favor, take 1 second out of your day and hit that sub button. My goal is 100,000 subs and I cannot do it without you. And if you're enjoying this video, you may as well drop a like, right? It helps me way more than you could think. And be sure to check out our podcast channel where we cover daily NBA news that's happening all season long. That channel will be linked down below, as well as our Discord server, Twitter, and Twitch stream, where we do these podcasts live at 9 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Let's get back to the video. Game 1 didn't go Miami's way. The Heat started strong, but then everything fell apart. Dallas looked confident. Miami looked rattled. Game 2 was even worse. Shaq had the worst playoff game of his entire career, scoring just 5 points. So Dallas won easily, and suddenly Miami was down 0-2 in the series, heading back home with their championship hopes hanging by a thread. Most teams don't come back from that, but Dwyane Wade wasn't most players. Game 3 was in Miami, with just over 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Dallas was up by 13 points. The season was slipping away. The crowd was getting quiet, and everything Miami had worked all year for was about to end in disappointment. And then the flash took over.
Wade on the drive, inside, banks it in. What a move. 3-point game.
Dwyane Wade scored 15 points in the final 6 minutes of that game. 15. He attacked the basket relentlessly, got to the free throw line, and refused to let his team lose.
To the basket. It's the lob, knocked away, and the Heat survive.
Wade had 42 points and 13 rebounds, and Miami had stolen a game that had no business winning. The series was suddenly alive again. 3 days later in Game 4, Wade dropped 36 points, and Miami held Dallas to just 7 points in the fourth quarter, the lowest scoring quarter in NBA Finals history. And just like that, the series was tied.
We haven't found the right solution to deal with Wade yet.
Game 5 was the most controversial game of this series, and it's still debated today. Wade scored 43 points and shot 25 free throws. With under 2 seconds left in overtime, a disputed foul call sent Wade to the line, and he hit both free throws to give Miami a 1-point lead. And suddenly they were 1 win away from a championship.
And Miami wins again to take a 3-2 lead.
Before we get to Game 6, I just gotta say, Dwyane Wade had 97 free throws throughout that entire series. Game 6 was back in Dallas, and there was no controversy this time. Wade closed the series out with 36 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. Shaq added 9 points and 12 rebounds. But this wasn't Shaq's moment. This was Dwyane Wade's coronation. When the final buzzer sounded, Miami had just won their first championship in franchise history, and Wade was named Finals MVP at just 24 years old. His averages for the series were almost impossible to believe. 35 points per game, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals. It was one of the greatest individual performances in NBA Finals history, a level of dominance that only a handful of players ever reached. Pat Riley said it best after the series ended. He said that he wasn't sure that there was another player who had that good of a final series. Dwyane Wade had just proven, once again, that everyone who underestimated him was wrong. The kid nobody wanted coming out of high school was now a champion. The 5th pick in the draft had won a title before the 1st pick. The sidekick everyone thought was learning from Shaq had just carried an entire franchise to its first ever championship. And at 24 years old, it felt like this was just the beginning. But what nobody knew at the time was that the next few years wouldn't be about building on that success. They'd be about survival, about injuries, about watching everything fall apart just as quickly as it came together. The celebration wouldn't last long before the struggle started all over again. The 2006-2007 season should have been a victory lap. Miami Heat were defending champions. Dwyane Wade was a Finals MVP entering his prime, and Miami had every reason to believe that they were building a dynasty. Instead, it became one of the most embarrassing nights in NBA history. Opening night, ring ceremony. The entire organization celebrating their first championship in front of a packed home crowd. And then the game started, and Chicago destroyed them by 42 points.
The fewest points Miami has ever scored against Chicago. And we're hearing boos from this crowd.
It was a statement that something was very wrong. Wade played through a dislocated shoulder and a torn labrum that season, missing over 30 games while trying to push through the pain that would have sidelined most players for the entire year. When he was on the court, he was still elite, still putting up big numbers with one of the highest player efficiency ratings in the league. But his body was breaking down, and the team around him was falling apart. Miami barely made the playoffs. When they matched up against Chicago in the first round, the Bulls swept them. It was the first time a defending champion had been swept in the first round since 1957. The fall from the top was swift and brutal, and Wade couldn't do anything to stop it. It can't get worse, right? Wrong. The next season was even worse. Wade missed the first 7 games recovering from dual surgeries on his shoulder and knee. And when he came back, it was clear that his body still was not ready. But he played through it anyway, trying to drag Miami back to relevance. But before the season ended, the organization shut him down. They even sent him to Germany for experimental shockwave treatment on his knee, a last-ditch effort to try to save his career before the damage had become permanent. Miami collapsed to 15 wins and 67 losses, tied for the worst record in franchise history. Shaq was traded to Phoenix mid-season. Pat Riley stepped away from coaching. The championship core was gone, and the franchise that had been on top of the basketball world just 2 years earlier was now in complete rebuild mode. Suddenly, the whisper started. Was Dwyane Wade's body done? Could he ever get back to the level he played in at 2006? Was that finals run just a flash in the pan? A moment of brilliance that his knees couldn't sustain? The doubters weren't loud yet, but they were there, questioning whether the player who had carried Miami to a championship was already damaged goods. Wade came back the next season determined to prove everyone wrong. The 2008-2009 season was the best individual year of Dwyane Wade's career. He won the scoring title, averaging 30 points per game, along with 7.5 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, and over 1 block per game.
O'Neal got a piece of it. Wade.
He became the only player in NBA history to record over 2,000 points, 500 assists, 150 steals, and 100 blocks all in just 1 season. He carried Miami from 15 wins to 43, almost entirely on his own.
Thomas, Wade with a steal, with 2. Wade puts it up for the win. Yeah, baby! He did it! That is ridiculous!
He finished 3rd in MVP voting behind LeBron James and Kobe Bryant. And once again, the only thing holding him back was his team's record. Wade's individual dominance was undeniable, but Miami didn't have the pieces around him to compete with the top teams in the league. And despite everything Wade had done to drag them back into relevance, they ended up losing in the first round. The season still ended in disappointment. The next year, Wade won All-Star Game MVP and continued to prove that his body could hold up. But Miami lost in the first round again, this time to Boston. And it became painfully clear that if Wade stayed on this path, his prime years were going to be wasted carrying a roster that just wasn't good enough to win. During this time, Wade had been going through a grueling divorce and countless of hours at court to settle the custody of his kids. The legal battles went on for years and forced him to leave practices early while having his mind split between injuries, getting back to his best, free agency coming up, and also being a father. He eventually was awarded custody for his kids in early 2011. Pat Riley had been watching all of this unfold, and he understood what was at stake. He'd already wasted years of Wade's peak dealing with injuries and bad rosters. He couldn't afford to waste any more. So Riley started planning, keeping Miami's payroll flexible, positioning the franchise for the summer of 2010 with 3 stars from the same draft class would all become free agents at the same exact time. Dwyane Wade, LeBron James, Chris Bosh. All of them had spent the last few years trying to carry their teams alone. All of them had tasted individual success but never sustained championship contention. And all of them were about to make a decision that would change the entire landscape of the NBA. Dwyane Wade was the key to all of it. He met with Pat Riley first, heard the pitch, and saw the vision for what Miami could become if they convinced the right players to join him. Riley wasn't asking Wade to recruit help. He was offering him a chance to build something historic. Wade bought in immediately. And from there, the dominoes started falling. Chris Bosh was the easier sell. Wade and Bosh had become close through USA Basketball, and when Wade explained what Miami was building, Bosh was ready to commit. But the biggest piece was still out there. LeBron James, the best player in the world, was considering his options, and everyone knew that wherever he went would shift the balance of power in the entire league. LeBron called Wade and asked for a conference call with him and Bosh. The 3 of them talked through what it would look like, what they could accomplish together, and what it would mean to join forces instead of battling against each other for the next decade. D. Wade had been preparing to sign with his hometown Chicago Bulls, ready to go back to where it all started. But when LeBron committed to Miami, everything changed. Wade and Bosh announced that they were teaming up in Miami. And the very next day, LeBron held the decision. An hour-long ESPN special that nearly 10 million people watched as he declared that he was taking his talents to South Beach. The backlash was immediate. I'm sure you guys remember. Cleveland fans burned jerseys in the streets. The team's owner wrote a scathing public letter. The sports world turned on him in a way that nobody had ever expected. But Miami didn't care about any of that backlash.
Oh, man. It's showtime.
They had just assembled 3 superstars in their primes, and they threw a massive celebration at the American Airlines Arena. Wade, LeBron, and Bosh all rose onto the court on a forklift platform while the crowd screamed and smoke filled the building. LeBron grabbed the mic and said, "Not 1, not 2,
not 5, not 6, not 7.
The hype in that building and city was suffocating. The expectations were impossible, and the pressure was unlike anything any of them had ever experienced. What most people don't talk about is what Wade had to give up to make all of this happen. When all 3 players signed their contracts that summer, LeBron and Bosh each got massive deals. Wade, who was their franchise player who had already brought Miami a championship, eventually took a discount. He sacrificed even more to keep his best friend on the team, Udonis Haslem. Here's what people forget. Dwyane Wade was never the highest paid player on the Miami Heat. Not during his championship run with Shaq, not during the Big 3 era, not ever in his 15 seasons with the franchise. This is the guy who built the entire culture, who carried the team to its first ever title, who put Miami basketball on the map, was always taking less money than someone else on the roster. He believed in what they were building, and he was willing to sacrifice to make it work. The first season started with championship expectations, but it didn't start smoothly. The reality of 3 stars trying to figure out on how to coexist became obvious fast. There were games where all 3 looked like they were taking turns instead of playing together. The ball movement stalled. The spacing was awkward, and the rest of the league was watching, just waiting for them to fail. But there were glimpses of what they could become. Games where Wade and LeBron would connect in transition and it looked effortless, like they'd been playing together for years. One of the most iconic images from that season captured it perfectly. Wade throwing a perfect bounce pass to LeBron for a dunk, then holding his follow-through pose while LeBron finished at the rim. A lot of people thought this was an alley-oop based on the iconic photo, but regardless, this was both of them perfectly in sync. A snapshot of 2 superstars finally on the same team doing what they did best. The chemistry was off for stretches, and Wade looked like he was still the best player on the team. In that first season together, D-Wade was averaging 25.5 points while LeBron was averaging 27.5. Their roles weren't clearly defined yet, and defenses were still trying to figure out on how to exactly guard them. When the pressure mounted in big games, the cracks started to show. There were nights where they looked unbeatable, and nights where they looked completely lost. By the time the playoffs arrived, Miami had figured out just enough to be dangerous. They rolled through the first 2 rounds, and the confidence was building. Then came the Eastern Conference Finals against Chicago, Derrick Rose's MVP season, and the Bulls were out for blood. Miami won, but it was tougher than expected. Wade had big moments throughout that series, reminding everyone that he was still one of the most clutch players in the league. Miami made it to the finals that year, facing the Dallas Mavericks in a rematch of the 2006 series. The Heat took an early lead in that series, and it looked like everything was falling into place. Then Dallas adjusted, and everything collapsed. LeBron disappeared in the fourth quarters while Wade was the best player on the floor for Miami throughout that entire series, putting up strong numbers and willing his team to stay competitive. But it just wasn't enough. Dallas won, and the entire basketball world turned on the Heat. That villain narrative was now justified in everyone's eyes. They failed. They choked. And the criticism was relentless.
It was like a Where's Waldo. I didn't even know he was in the game.
The media blamed LeBron for shrinking in the big moments, which was fair. But there was another narrative building underneath that one, and it was aimed directly at Dwyane Wade. Analysts started questioning whether Wade was holding LeBron back, if he was unwilling to step aside and let the best player in the world be the best player in the world. Those whispers turned into loud conversations, and they were all saying that Wade needed to take a step back. And Wade, to his credit, did exactly that. Before the next season started, Wade had a conversation with LeBron that changed the entire dynamic of the team. He told LeBron he was man enough to understand that LeBron was the best player in the world and that he needed to assert himself more. It wasn't an easy conversation. This was Dwyane Wade's team. Miami was Wade County. He had already won a championship there, already proven himself as the guy. But he put his ego to the side and made the decision to cede the throne. The lockout-shortened seasons was when it all clicked. Wade's scoring dropped to 22 points per game. The touches were going to LeBron. The offense ran through LeBron, and it worked. The playoffs that year showed exactly what Wade had become in his new role. In the first round against the New York Knicks, Wade reminded everyone that he could still take over when needed. But it was the second round against Indiana where things got interesting. The Pacers pushed Miami hard, and when Chris Bosh went down with an injury late in that series, Wade had to step up in ways he hadn't all season. In a crucial win, he dropped 41 points, attacking relentlessly and refusing to let the season end. Then came the Eastern Conference Finals against Boston. The Celtics' big three of Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen were older but still dangerous, still physical, and they knew exactly how to get under Miami's skin. This series went the full 7 games and every single one of them felt like a war. Wade averaged over 21 points per game through the series, but the numbers themselves don't tell you the full story. This series was about toughness, about showing up every night when the games got ugly and physical.
Without any resistance. Oh, what a block from Wade!
Game 4 went to overtime, and LeBron James fouled out for the first time since joining the Heat. Rajon Rondo took over and Boston won, tying the series at 2 games apiece. The series stayed tight, and suddenly Miami was facing a Game 7 at home with their entire season on the line. Wade came through. He wasn't the leading scorer that night, but his presence was felt in every big moment.
Here comes James, lobs to Wade, back to James! What a play from Wade to James!
Miami beat Boston and advanced to face Oklahoma City in the finals. The Thunder were young, hungry, and led by Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, but Miami was too experienced. Wade played the perfect second option role throughout that series, letting LeBron dominate while making every key play when it mattered. When the confetti fell, Miami had finally delivered on the promise. LeBron earned Finals MVP, but everyone who watched knew that Wade's willingness to sacrifice had made it all possible.
I've been through a lot, and that 15-win season, professionally it hurt. Live stock of the league, what I dealt with personally is undescribable in a sense. I'm blessed, I'm lucky. I'm enjoying this one a lot more than I enjoyed 2006.
And the next season was even better. Miami posted the best record in franchise history and put together a 27-game winning streak, the second longest in NBA history. Wade's scoring continued to decline down to 21 points per game, but it didn't matter. The team was still dominant. The chemistry was perfect. LeBron was playing at an MVP level, and Wade was thriving in his new role. But it was the playoffs where Wade showed that he still had that championship DNA. Against Milwaukee in the first round, Wade was efficient and in control, helping Miami advance easily.
Left wide open.
Then came Chicago in the second round, and Wade had multiple strong performances against his hometown team. The Pacers pushed Miami hard in the Eastern Conference Finals, but Wade came through when it mattered most, dropping big scoring nights and playing lockdown defense when the game got tight. The finals that year against San Antonio came down to one of the most dramatic finishes in NBA history. Miami was facing elimination in Game 6, down by 5 points with less than 30 seconds left. And when the season was about to end, Ray Allen hit the corner 3 that saved their season.
To Allen, his three-pointer, bang! Tie game with 5 seconds remaining!
But what people forget is that Wade had kept Miami alive throughout that entire game with clutch plays and timely buckets when nobody else could score. Game 7 was back in Miami, and the pressure was suffocating. Wade came through with 23 points and 10 rebounds, playing all 48 minutes and refusing to let his team lose. LeBron led the way with 37 points, but Wade's contributions in the biggest moments of that game were the difference. Miami had won back-to-back championships.
It's back-to-back titles for the Heat. The 2013 NBA championship resides once again in Miami.
LeBron earned his second straight Finals MVP, and the Big Three had officially cemented their legacy.
And we did it. I ain't got nothing left.
Even though the Heat won back-to-back titles, something looked off. Those acrobatic finishes from Dwyane Wade started to look a little bit less acrobatic. The next season saw Wade's body beginning to break down in ways that couldn't be ignored anymore. He missed over 20 games that year, sitting out regularly for rest and knee management. His scoring dropped to 19 points per game, a 25% decline from when the Big Three first formed. The meniscus that doctors had removed from his knee back at Marquette was finally catching up to him, and the pain was becoming unbearable. He described mornings where he could barely put on underwear because his knees hurt so badly. Miami made it back to the finals for the 4th straight year, this time facing San Antonio again in a rematch. But this series wasn't close. The Spurs played some of the most beautiful basketball in finals history. They ended up dismantling Miami, and Wade struggled throughout, his body simply unable to keep up with the pace and physicality anymore. When the season ended, the question started immediately. How much longer could Wade's body hold up? Was this core still good enough to compete for championships? And most importantly, what was LeBron going to do?
I think everybody needs to get a grip. You got to stay together if you got the guts, and you don't find the first door and run out of it.
LeBron James picks Cleveland.
Well, LeBron James announced that he was returning to Cleveland. The Big Three era was over. 4 straight finals appearances, 2 championships, and just like that, it was done. And for Dwyane Wade, the frustration was just beginning. After everything he had sacrificed, after taking less money, after stepping aside and letting LeBron be the face of the team, after watching his body break down carrying the load year after year, Wade expected Miami to take care of him. Pat Riley had always preached loyalty. The Heat prided themselves on doing right by their players, but when it came time to pay Wade what he deserved, Miami hesitated. LeBron left, and Chris Bosh got the max contract, a 5-year deal worth $118 million. Wade got a 2-year deal worth $31 million. Another pay cut, another sacrifice, with the understanding that Miami would add pieces and keep competing. Instead, the roster got worse. In fact, Miami missed the playoffs entirely. The season after that was a bit better. The playoffs that year had moments where Wade still flashed brilliance. Against Charlotte in the first round, one of the most iconic moments of Wade's career happened. Sitting courtside was a fan in a bright purple shirt who had been visible all game long. That guy was talking smack all night long, and Wade would not allow it. Late in the fourth quarter, Wade hit a huge three-pointer right in front of him, turned, and stared him down with a cold, unbothered look that made that dude become an instant meme. It was vintage Dwyane Wade, the calm assassin who never got rattled no matter how loud the noise got around him. Miami made it to the second round before losing to Toronto, but when contract negotiations started that summer, the relationship between Wade and the organization had finally fractured. Miami initially offered Dwyane Wade $10 million for 1 year. $10 million for a player who had given the franchise everything, who had taken pay cut after pay cut, who had brought them their only championships. The offer eventually went up to $40 million over 2 years, but by then, the damage was already done.
Look, Dwyane is tired of being nice. He's playing hardball with the Miami Heat.
Wade watched as the team gave Hassan Whiteside $98 million over 4 years. And he couldn't understand how the franchise valued a center who had been there for just a couple seasons over the face of the organization. Pat Riley later admitted that this was a mistake, acknowledging that they should have given Wade the max when LeBron left instead of asking him to sacrifice yet again. But by the time Riley realized his mistake, it was too late.
I expected more of Pat. Pat up with me. That he up the situation with me. He should have handled it way better. You know?
Dwyane Wade, the greatest player in Miami Heat history, was frustrated, undervalued. And in the summer of 2016, Dwyane Wade did something that once felt impossible. He left Miami. He signed with his hometown Chicago Bulls on a 2-year deal worth $47 million, finally becoming the highest paid player on his team for the first time in his NBA career. It should have been a homecoming story, a chance to finish his career where it all started, but it never felt right. The roster was dysfunctional and the chemistry just never clicked. After an embarrassing loss, Wade publicly called out his teammates for their lack of commitment and effort. The frustration was spilling over, and it became very clear that this wasn't the ending that anyone wanted. Chicago lost in the first round after injuries derailed their momentum. And when the Bulls decided to rebuild that summer, they bought out Wade's contract. He ended up signing a veteran minimum deal with Cleveland for $2.3 million just to reunite with LeBron, hoping to recapture some of that championship magic they built together in Miami. And well, it didn't work. Wade started the first few games, struggled shooting, and volunteered to come off the bench because the fit just wasn't there. This roster was dysfunctional. His role was undefined, and it felt like he was just floating through someone else's season. Then on trade deadline day,
Dwyane Wade is heading back to Miami.
We have team coverage of Dwyane Wade's return to Miami.
Cleveland sent Wade back to Miami for a heavily protected second-round pick. When Wade got the text, his first thought was disbelief. There was no way it was Miami. The relationship had been too fractured. The exit was just way too painful, but it was real. And a hug between Wade and Pat Riley at a funeral before the trade had quietly repaired what had been broken. And suddenly, Wade was back where he belonged. He finished that season in Miami, and when it ended, everyone assumed that he'd just retire. His body was breaking down. He'd accomplished everything. He had nothing left to prove. But Wade wasn't ready to walk away just yet. He had one more season left in him, and he wanted to do it the right way. In September 2018, Wade announced that this was going to be his final season.
To join me for one last dance. This is it.
He came off the bench for every game he played that year, averaging 15 points per game at 37 years old, including a 35-point performance that set a Miami bench scoring record. But the numbers weren't what made that season so special. It was the respect. For the first time in his entire career, Dwyane Wade was getting the recognition that he deserved, not as the guy in someone else's shadow, not as the player who sacrificed for others. He was being celebrated as one of the greatest to ever do it, and the entire league made sure he knew it. The jersey swap tradition became the signature of that season. Wade exchanged jerseys with over 3 dozen players, including LeBron, Carmelo Anthony, Dirk Nowitzki, who was also retiring, Chris Paul, Jimmy Butler, and so many others. Every arena he walked into gave him a standing ovation. Every city in the country honored him. Every fan base that had watched him destroy their team over the years stood up and applauded the career that he'd built.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate you, man. I love you. You too.
Budweiser even made a commercial featuring people whose lives Wade had impacted, all of them exchanging symbolic jerseys with him in their own way. It was about everything that he'd represented: resilience, the sacrifice, the quiet greatness that never demanded attention but always earned it. Then came the moments that reminded everyone why he was so special in the first place.
Back to Dwyane. Shoots. No, he couldn't get it off. Now fires it up. Bank it in. It counts. It counts. The Heat win the game.
That was his 5th career game-winning buzzer beater, tying Kobe Bryant for the most all time. Steph Curry acknowledged after the game that moments like that reminded everyone how great Wade truly was.
Making a play like that, this last year in this building.
Such an amazing player, amazing person.
Even Commissioner Adam Silver added Wade and Dirk as special selections to the All-Star game that year, and LeBron made sure to draft his former teammate. It was the basketball world collectively saying thank you, acknowledging everything Wade had given to the game.
For Wade. Walker back. Here's Wade setting up.
Wade's last home game came on April 9th, 2019, playing against the Philadelphia 76ers. He scored 30 points in a blowout win, and the Miami crowd gave him a 10-minute standing ovation. It was emotional. It was perfect. And it felt like the send-off he deserved.
That was tragic. Let's try it again. Wade County, I love you.
And then came his final NBA game, April 10th, 2019 in Brooklyn. Wade recorded a triple-double in his last ever game, finishing with 25 points, 11 rebounds, and 10 assists. He became the oldest player to record a triple-double in Game 82 of an NBA season, and he passed Elgin Baylor to finish 29th on the all-time scoring list with 23,165 points.
Wade gives it up. Haslam the bucket. Yes! Dwyane Wade, a triple-double in his final NBA game.
And of course, sitting courtside was LeBron James, Chris Paul, Carmelo Anthony, and the entire Banana Boat crew, all there to cheer on D. Wade in his final performance.
Oscar-worthy script for Last Dance for my last season. I couldn't have asked for anything more.
Less than a year later, Miami retired Wade's number 3 jersey in a 3-day celebration they called the Legacy Celebration. Pat Riley introduced him with words of love and admiration. The street outside the arena was renamed to Dwyane Wade Boulevard. They even gave him a statue, regardless of how horrible it looks. And 3 years later, in August 2023, Dwyane Wade was inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame on the first ballot. Allen Iverson, whose number 3 Wade had worn his entire career in tribute, served as his presenter. Wade's speech traced the entire journey, from the south side of Chicago to Springfield, Massachusetts.
Your strength to overcome your own personal adversity is something I've always admired about you.
And he brought his father on stage with him, declaring that they were in the Hall of Fame together.
This one is for my father. I love you, and I'm thankful for you.
I love you too, man.
We in the Hall of Fame, dog.
Wade was also named to the NBA's 75th anniversary team, a list of the 75 greatest players in the history of the league. When his name was announced, Wade couldn't believe it. He later said that this was the greatest honor that he could have ever had in his NBA career. So after you've heard the story of Dwyane Wade, the consensus among analysts is clear. Dwyane Wade is the 3rd greatest shooting guard in NBA history behind only Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. 3 championships, finals MVP, 13 All-Star selections, the all-time leader in blocks for a guard, one of the highest player efficiency ratings in NBA history, higher than Kobe's, a career built on sacrifice, resilience, and a refusal to accept the limitations other people placed on him. And it all started as an unranked kid from Chicago's South Side who nobody wanted. A kid who failed the ACT multiple times and had to sit out an entire year of college just to get a chance. A kid who was picked 5th in his draft class and spent his whole career proving that everyone ahead of him was a mistake. Dwyane Wade didn't just make it into the NBA. He became an NBA legend. And the best part? He did it his way, in someone else's shadow, sacrificing everything along the way. Until the very end, when the world finally stopped and said what should have been obvious all along. Dwyane Wade, the Flash, was one of the greatest to ever play the game of basketball.
Because he was from the inner city of Chicago, because he lived in a town called Robbins, Illinois, y'all didn't see that person. Y'all didn't see the grind. Y'all didn't see the tears. Y'all didn't see the moments where it just looked like it wouldn't happen.
If you enjoyed, please don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, and check out our podcast channel, Jay-Z Courtside, where we upload daily NBA content Monday through Friday. Oh, and you see the videos that are on the screen right now? Go check them out. I think you'll love them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.